Good afternoon to all of you. And for those of you out of the country, good morning, good evening, and hope it's a great weekend happening for all of you, wherever you are on this planet. So, we are well into the coronavirus from February, and as you can see, we are still online, but hopefully things will turn better next year. Let's wait and watch. Meanwhile, here we are with the Great India Quiz, the second edition. Some sequels work, some sequels don't work, but I hope this one works for all of you. We have a wonderful set of questions put together by Sai and team. So let's get on to the quiz with the very first question of the Great India Quiz 2. And here it comes. In 2010, Environment Minister Jairam Ramesh blamed a group of people for the decline in the population of owls. What group did he blame? Lots of correct answers coming there with some interesting ones thrown in between.
Yeah, these are fans of Harry Potter because the
These-
little kids were trying to emulate Harry Potter.
Okay, and you're absolutely right, Andrew. Very well done. These are actually the Harry Potter fans who are asking poachers to get owls as pets. So, incidentally, all this happened in 2010 when this particular study was brought out by Traffic India. It's called the Imperiled Custodians of the Night, about illegal trade and trapping and the use of owls in India. All of us know that owls have a lot of mythological context in India as well, and
what I find very interesting is that in the Western context, we always talk about wise owls, right?
yes,
And wise old owl lived in an oak and all that. And
Yeah.
in India, we use the word ullu for somebody who's particularly stupid.
right.
It's quite interesting. Normally we tend to think that these come out of the qualities of the animal, but it's clearly only projection. Of course, owls have been part of mythology, right? They're
Yes.
part of
Yes.
Lakshmi's Vahan also. So
And I think in the West, you have the Greek goddess Athena, goddess of wisdom with an owl. So there's a lot of cultural
the
differences there.
Athenian coins had owls on them. So they were
Ah.
referred to colloquially as owls.
Okay. Happens literally lost in translation.
So I was saying that Donald Trump supporter Tomi Lahren basically complimented Donald Trump by saying that our Indian fans have said that you're wise like an ullu, and they seem to have missed the joke there.
I believe there is a difference between apparently white owls, which are considered good, which is why sometimes I remember in Calcutta during Durga Puja, you always used to have one of the goddesses with the owl next to her that way. And Lakshmi also has always represented with an owl. And one of the reasons apparently is one, of course, it's meant to bring good luck also. But Devdutt Patnaik had an interesting take on it, where he mentioned that the owl sometimes is a symbol of ill fortune or alakshmi. And so we need to not only just propitiate Lakshmi for wealth, we also need to propitiate and recognize Alakshmi so that she keeps away herself from our daily lives as well. So
Hi. So there's a study which was done in the US, which talked about these eastern screech owls, and they keep blind snakes in their nests as helpful associates because these blind snakes eat the parasites which would usually affect the owlings or the small owls. So they keep blind snakes as pets in the nest.
actually, I don't know whether any of you, this is a personal thing. At home, we had someone in the downstairs flat whom I thought was in some kind of a respirator with very irregular breathing. And because it was very loud, and I thought there's something wrong with his oxygen and thing, we went down, but he was okay. And then we realized the sound was coming from outside in the trees, and it was an owl making the most un-owl-like sound. So owls all don't go hoot hoot at the night. They have some kind of a very odd respiratory kind of a sound which they make. This is Jahanara Begum of Palanpur. She never received the title of Her Highness. So the question is why? Take a good look at the pic. There's a clue there.
Well, I feel because she never wore the crown, as very common of a queen to wear the crown. Maybe that is the reason she never received the Her Highness title.
Because she didn't wear the crown. No, that's not quite right. Shall we try someone else?
Yeah, she was an Anglo-Indian, and she got married to this king of Palanpur, who was a Muslim. She
Okay.
converted, and the British actually did not like a Christian converting to Islam, and maybe that is the reason that they did not give her the title Her Highness.
We're very close, but let me.
My answer was that she doesn't look Indian. She looks like a person of foreign origin. So I just answered that.
Absolutely right. That's the right answer we were looking for.
Interesting fact here is Jahanara Begum, or Joan Faulkner, was actually my grand aunt, and the reason she did not get the title of Her Highness, actually any person of a foreign descent married to an Indian Raja, Maharaja or a Nawab were not given the title of Her Highness. It was just not being a Muslim or anything like that, but any lady who was even married to a Rajput never got the title of HH, that is Her Highness, and neither were the children allowed to ascend the throne. There were various reasons attached to it. Maybe the Britishers did not like them fraternizing with the Indian royalty. The interesting fact here is that Lord Louis Mountbatten was a very good friend of Nawab Taleh Muhammad Khanji, who was the Nawab of Palanpur and Jahanara Begum's husband. He decided that he's going to do something which the world will remember him for. He signed a decree which elevated Jahanara Begum, or Joan Faulkner, to Her Highness the Begum Sahib of Palanpur. So she was the only woman of a foreign descent married to an Indian king who got the title of Her Highness the Begum of Palanpur. And she goes down in history for that.
Interesting, Alia. Thank you for that, sharing that personal information from your family archives.
I'd like to say here that this is something that even continued later because you had Richard Holker. His mother was American, so even post-independence, his sister Usha Devi was made the queen, ruler of Indore, and he was not allowed to be because he was of half foreign origin. And this is post-independence, so it really had nothing to do with the British. I also think it's interesting because if you look at somebody like Barack Obama or Kamala Harris, we could possibly use the same rules for them, but we don't.
Yes. The other thing that we found interesting was this person called Molly Fink, who was famous as an Australian socialite. She married Martanda Bhairava Tondeman of Raja Pudukkottai.
Yeah, Pudukkottai was interesting because if you look at the map of the Madras presidency, you have this big swathe of pink across Andhra Pradesh and Telangana and Tamil Nadu and all the way closer to Kerala and bits. But there is one little island, almost like the little Gaulish village. There's one little island which is of a different color inside Tamil Nadu, and that happens to be Pudukkottai. It was an independent kingdom. It was not under the British control at that point in time.
I don't recollect the exact name, but I know that even the Prince of Kapurthala, the Kingdom of Kapurthala, he was quite an interesting personality. He actually married a French national, and then she came to India and then became one of his other queens. And then, if you have read that in Kapurthala, the palace was inspired by Versailles Palace. In addition to building many buildings inspired by French architecture, I read in a book that he actually made French as a court language as well. Imagine Punjabis at that time, in addition to Hindi, Urdu, also learning French.
Yeah, what he's saying is actually correct. The Kapurthala Maharaja allowed everything French.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so from his palace to his furniture to his cuisine. And in fact, he named, I think, his children also after French names.
I wonder how the cuisine would have been. A really interesting combination of Punjabi and French.
There were a lot of royalties who did marry a lot of foreigners in spite of Britishers discouraging them.
Yes.
In fact, Martanda Bhairava Tondeman's son was actually named Martanda Sydney Tondeman, right? So his name was actually Sydney. There was also this Australian actress called Elsie Caroline Thompson, who married the Raja Kumar Gopal Saran Narain Singh, the Maharaja of Tikari in the early part of the 20th century.
Yeah. Okay, here comes question 3. So what specific type of nerd or a history buff would go on a trail consisting of these locations that you can see there on the map? I think you're throwing them off the track, Sai. That's very mean.
That was deliberate, yes.
I think if you're on a food trail also, it would work quite well. Especially if we go a little north to Punjab, I would like to try that combination of French cuisine and Punjabi.
Actually, both are quite high in fat. Both the cuisines use a lot of, they're very rich cuisines.
Yeah,
Okay.
so my answer is paleontologist.
Any specific reason for saying paleontologist apart from the fact that Alia is sitting there?
I feel these places are known for, the sites where dinosaur bones and tree fossils were found are quite close from here to my
And
mind.
Rashmi, from 3 cities in India, you're absolutely right. So you would
Thank
be a
you.
dinosaur buff. I don't know what other things you're interested in, Rashmi, but you are definitely a dinosaur buff because I didn't have any clue about this.
So Rayoli is a tiny little village near Balasinor, which was totally unknown. We were like a tiny little speck on the world map, if I may say so. Recent years, I would say past 26 years, the tiny little village of Rayoli has become world famous. It is the third largest excavation site for dinosaur fossils and also the third largest hatchery. And we also have the distinction of giving 3 dinosaurs to the world, which are exclusively Gujarati, if I may say so. So I call them my Guju dinosaurs. And we have the Rajasaurus narmatensis, the Rayolisaurus gujaratensis, which actually featured in the World Dictionary of Dinosaurs now.
I think you can run an entire quiz on dinosaur names in India. So.
Yes, you can.
There's nothing much happening in the northern part of India and the eastern part. Is it because India came from Madagascar and bashed into the south of Asia? Is that the reason why?
We were attached to Madagascar, and India was the region which was like, all the 7 continents of the world were all attached together at one point of time, which was called Pangaea.
Yes.
We moved apart. India is known to have traveled the furthest.
I believe there are a lot of fish and
you do find a lot of marine fossils, if I may say.
In Kashmir side, I believe.
From outside, I visited Alia Babi's house. I had the pleasure. But yeah, this is a really beautiful place.
I visited in 2016. At that time, the dinosaur park was in nascent stage.
How
and what are the fossils you saw, Anubhav?
I saw. There was a guide who took me and my wife and my daughter to visit the park. All those footprints, everything was there. This park was under construction. They have this modular dinosaur, a kind of replicas over there. That was still under construction, but it's a very nice place. Must visit on your itinerary.
So, as you know, the dinosaurs were very numerous. People, over the centuries, even before we knew there were creatures like the dinosaur, anywhere people would dig, they would come across these large reptilian bones, right? So what do people do when they come across something they don't recognize? They make up stories.
Yeah.
So what do you think people would do in Europe? They imagined a creature which would have existed or which exists but they don't get to see. So absolutely, I see it's dragons. And as in Indian mythology, we also imagine giant reptiles, right? We have giant reptiles in our mythology. So this is something which I strongly feel would, because you find this common across all cultures, it should have come out of discovery of the dinosaur bones, which they would have found.
So I was digging up information on dinosaurs in India, and I believe one of the first discoveries of dinosaur fossils was by William Henry Sleeman, who was working with the East India Company. This was in 1828 in Jabalpur. And that name struck the bell because he was the guy who was responsible for eradicating the thugs.
Rebels and recollections.
Yes.
And do you know, Naveenji, that there is a village named after William?
No, I didn't know that. No.
Imamabad.
That's interesting. Where is it? Where is it?
It's near Jabalpur only, very close to where the first fossil was found.
Okay.
Ichthyosaurus.
Ichthyosaurus, yes. The saurus part, all of you know. So what is ISI? Saurus means lizard. So I didn't know that. I didn't know that Mahalanobis, apart from looking at statistics, was also interested in dinosaurs. He actually apparently started a geological. There is a museum, I think, in West Bengal somewhere, in the campus of ISI, I think, where they have that dinosaur fossil, etc.
But one of the greatest paleontologists was Mary Anning, who used to live on the coast of Dover. And story goes that she and her brother used to pick up so many fossils, and they were not very well to do. So they used to sit by the side of the coast and sell the fossils. And P.J. McCartney immortalized that in this amazing tongue twister that we all know. She sells seashells on the seashore, which came to us thanks to the dinosaur hunting lady, Mary Anning. So this is a shout out to Mary Anning for being an amazing person, like hundreds of years back.
Okay, so Savio took over as creator in 1998 and began introducing changes to a certain comic character. Contrary to the name of the comic character, he engages now in conservation, and Savio also removed the dominating wife stereotype. So who was this character who Savio changed so much? Lots of correct answers pouring in.
Is this Shikari Shambhu?
Yes, this is Shikari Shambhu. Well done, well done. So this is Savio. So Shikari Shambhu was started, of course, by Tinkle with Anant Pai. It was a kind of a response to another magazine, a rival magazine called Target, apparently, which had a detective Moochwala as a character, so he wanted to create something similar. And one of the inspirations for Shikari Shambhu, I believe, was the I Love Lucy programs as well. But Shikari Shambhu, they were very careful of the fact that he should not actually be killing animals. So I don't think Shikari Shambhu has ever hunted an animal in his entire life. He does a lot of conservation and other things, of course.
I'm saying I have grown up with Amar Chitra Katha. I am of that generation which actually bought this first Krishna, in 1972. And it was a ritual. I remember at a particular time, the new Amar Chitra Katha would come out on a Friday. So I would go to a particular bookshop with my mom every Friday to get the latest Amar Chitra Katha. But this Krishna actually is number 11. It's not number 1.
Right.
And so I was very curious as to what were 1 and 10 and why do we never see them. It so turns out that 1 to 10 were actually retellings of Cinderella and Snow White and the standard Western folk tales.
What started Amar Chitra Katha?
Chipinder, you had asked me a question in a landmark quiz once.
Yes.
That why is this important for Indian culture? Who is Nikhil Banerjee?
Now I'm looking most embarrassed because I don't remember the question or the answer.
No. So this is the original Spiknake.
Oh, yes, of course. Yes.
Yeah. So it's not me, but my 12-year-old son wants.
Yes, please.
More than welcome. Yes.
Yeah, go on, answer.
So basically, they had this family reunion where they would discuss literature. And the children, they were writing like Western stories, like about a girl in London and a poem called Daffodils. So then he wanted to like tell Indian stories. So that's why he started Amar Chitra Katha.
That's probably one of the reasons. I think quizzers might have found another reason which is there. This happens to be what you see on the screen is an Amar Chitra Katha about Anant Pai, Uncle Pai himself. And so the story goes that he was listening to a quiz show and someone asked a question about the Ramayana, and Rama's mother, and he didn't know the name. And so he said, how come, like our young friend just mentioned, we know a lot of foreign stuff, but India wants to know about India, isn't it? That's the reason why he started Amar Chitra Katha and shifted from that, and we've never looked back since then. So
thanks, Aiden Williams.
Aiden, 100 points to you, and we'll move on to the next question. Well done. Anandamide, known as a bliss molecule. So you can read a little bit of information about Ananda. Of course, you know what it means in Sanskrit. Which other compound interacts with Anandamide, or where would you find this compound?
I think a lot of you have guessed it right.
Is it marijuana? Weed.
Yes. So according to sources,
yes.
In case Navika Kumar is listening to this call, according to sources, this is essentially the structure of THC, which is very similar to the structure of Anandamide. So Anandamide is actually discovered only in the 90s. So until longest time, the CB1 receptor in the body was considered as the only one that could fit the structure of THC molecule, right? Anandamide was only discovered in the 90s, and that is the interesting fact.
Yeah, Malana is the people pride themselves on Greek origin.
Yes.
And the local legend is that it's Alexander's soldiers, which is most unlikely because Alexander went back from the Vyas River, right? His soldiers never penetrated this far. But you did have, I think very few of us know that you had these Bactrian Greeks who ruled out of Sialkot in Punjab.
Okay.
And we find traces of this Greek blood. Actually, Naveen, you're a doctor. So thalassemia,
Yes.
which is there in Western India.
Mediterranean countries, yes.
Thalassa is the Greek word for the Mediterranean.
Yes.
And thalassemia is a disease essentially carried to India by the Greeks. And you find quite a prevalence of it in Rajasthan, in Punjab, Gujarat, among Kutchi Bhatiyas, for example. Certain communities have a
It's like
right?
a signature, yes. It is a genetic signature of sorts, yes.
So it's quite interesting.
A similar story is there for in Coorg. There are there are two stories saying that the people of Coorg are either of Greek origin. Like when people of Alexander's army were tired to go back, they just head south towards Coorg and settle there, mingling with the people living there. And then there is another one of their Arab descent, just because of the kupiya which they tie around their waist, the one which the Coorgi men wear.
Yes.
Alexander had a policy that he used to own these Alexandrias, and he would leave about 5,000 core Greek soldiers to people each town that he founded. And he founded many in the subcontinent as well, in whatever regions he conquered. So he would have gone back, but those soldiers would have also remained and maybe merged with the population or become a separate community, right? Which is
Yes.
what happened in India too.
Apparently, they have a no touching policy with outsiders. So if you're an outsider and you enter their village, they will not touch you. And you cannot touch them at all. So, which is interesting given the times that we are living in.
In fact, I would like to recommend, there are two interesting documentaries. One is this award-winning documentary called Bomb, which not only traces the history of Malana village with respect to its history with marijuana, but also the fact that Malana is considered the world's oldest democracy. It's the oldest village in the world where people have always voted by consensus, right? So they've been having elections for many centuries. And there's another documentary narrated by Nasruddin Shah called Goonj, which also traces the history of marijuana and hashish in India. And the access to this village is fairly limited, which is why there's this huge mafia around drugs that survives there. Someone in the attendees have said that, M Cream is another film that is on Malana. That's absolutely right. Anand PK.
Hi, on the topic of cannabis, I think all of you might know there's an interesting report that the British did in the 1890s. They formed a commission called the Indian Hemp Drug Commission. And the prevailing belief was basically this causes insanity, right? All hemp and bhang and everything. So actually the white folks actually did a countrywide survey among all people who consume charas and all those things, and came to a scientific conclusion that it does not. And there was a scroll story long ago that said that that's what saved bhang from being banned during Holi in 1891 or something. So thanks to the British, they know better.
Bhang mange bhusdo, which is food.
Okay.
Sulfo mange ghee. Daru mange khusdo, which is shoe. Like you need to be beaten with a shoe. Marji ho so pi.
Okay, that's interesting.